Captain Robert Salas, the United States Air Force retired. Back in 1967, Bob was a missile launch officer at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. He says a UFO hovered over his nuclear missile site and disabled all the missiles.
And so, Carl, here's the million-dollar question. Do you believe that a higher form of non-human intelligence has visited this planet?
Right. So non-human intelligence exists. Non-human intelligence has been interacting with humanity. This interaction is not new, and it's been ongoing. And there are unelected people in the government that are aware of that.
Roswell, New Mexico is a quiet city of just 26,000 people. The majority of the population are ranchers or military.
And so, Carl, that is quite a bold statement. I'm wondering, and I'm curious, how confident are you that that is true?
There's zero doubt.
Well, I want to welcome you to my channel, Observer of Anomalous Objects. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, let me encourage you to do that. Also, if you want to help the channel grow, go ahead and share it, the video, like it, and just make sure your friends are aware of it. I'm really excited today because we're going to have Jeremy of Into the Parabnormal on. I'll go ahead and bring him up, and then I'll explain how I know Jeremy. I think it dates back to 2023 at the McMinnville UFO Festival, wasn't it? You've been there about every year, aren't you?
Since 2018, yes. Missed 1 year due to COVID, but we've been there every other year, yeah.
Yeah, I loved it because you did the live radio show right there as we were, Travis Walton was over there, and so was Earl Grey Anderson. And cool thing is I've gotten to know both of them. Haven't been able to get Travis on the podcast yet. He's got a lot going on.
Oh, you want his number?
I have his number, believe it or not. I saw him in Roswell. Second time I talked to him. And
I wouldn't do that, by the way.
What's that?
Give you his number.
Oh, I didn't. Okay. you just
give my protect the sources, right?
Yeah. I have his business card. He did give that to me the last time I talked to him, but he's been pretty busy. Hopefully someday I'll get him on the podcast. I think they're doing a remake of Fire in the Sky, or a version of it anyway. So that sounds pretty excited. He seemed pretty excited about it anyway. But it was an exciting time. You've got some breaking news for us, though, don't you, Jeremy? That just came out of a hearing?
Sure, absolutely. Just watch this thing go down. It has an official title now: the Task Force on the Declassification of Federal Secrets. And it is chaired by Representative Anna Paulina Luna, who, if you've been following UFO disclosure efforts, you know that name because she has been closely involved. Comer referred to her as kind of the sledgehammer who's going to crash, break through the glass ceiling or crash through the wall of, the dam that has been put up on disclosure. And we're not just talking about UFOs. Actually, she called them UAP, which is the preferred term these days. But she also went one step further, which I find very interesting. We'll talk about this more over on my podcast. Is this wasn't just a brush or a graze of the UFO topic. She actually mentioned USOs, unidentified submerged or submersible objects. And so that shows that she's at least intelligent enough on the subject to know that there are, these transmedium craft which are able to navigate all sorts of mediums. But also the Epstein client list, the COVID origins, the 9/11 files, the assassinations of JFK and RFK and MLK. Some of this President Trump has already said that he was going to release, but this is the official body that will be carrying this out. So TBD what happens from here, but they've made claims that they're not just going to be a body that doesn't really do anything. They are getting ready to hold a hearing that will be sometime in March. Again, the Task Force on the Declassification of Federal Secrets. And so we'll see what that means for the UFO topic. As I tell everybody, only time will tell. This is a process, and I think that's what's important to remember is the process here. Because there are steps that have to be taken in order for disclosure to formally play out, and this is one of them. And so we just have to remain patient, and we also shouldn't attack our congressmen and women who are doing this work behind the scenes I'm just tired of the asshats on Twitter and on all of these different forums who, when you post a story saying, hey, look, as I did a couple of days ago, we will monitor what this press conference is to see if there are any UFO developments. And of course, you get all sorts of people who just jump on you saying, oh, this is going to be a nothing burger. Oh, it's a politician. If their lips are moving, they must be lying, and all this sort of stuff. We have to realize that this is a process. Yes, there are pawns within this game. It is a big, giant shell game. It's a circle jerk, whatever you want to call it. It's been going on for many, many, many decades. But at least now we have bodies that are being set up, and we just have to see how this plays out. But if you want formal disclosure to play out, you have to have a body like this who brings forth this information. Look, they didn't want to pass the review board, which would have allowed some of this stuff to go before the president during the last couple of rounds that they've tried to push legislation through. And it's been a fight between Republicans and Democrats who agree on the UFO subject, but they're at odds with each other on what we should disclose, when we should disclose it, how we should disclose it. And now that almost makes that a moot point. We don't need the legislation because it's done through an executive order.
Well, that really shows how important the conference was today. On your personal opinion, Jeremy, where do you think we are in disclosure? Do you think we are within 5 years? Do you think we're within 3 years? Do you think we're within a year? I mean, just a guess. I realize you can't nail it down and say this, but I mean, you've been at this for a while. And so I'm just curious about where you think we are on the process of disclosure.
Sure, I would say it would have to play out within the timeline of the current administration, because if this is the plan here through executive order to start, this basically chain of events, it would have to take place within 4 years, because 4 years from now, who knows? We don't even know who's going to be running. I mean, we are still so early in this process, and we don't know what kinds of goals or motives or personal interests those individuals may or may not have. You could get somebody at office who just thinks all this work that's been done on UFO disclosure is just a big, giant waste of time and money, and would just, close shop. That certainly has happened. And so you have to have somebody who's at least open to this. Whether or not Trump actually believes in UFOs, and he's publicly stated he doesn't, but he's talked with enough people who have seen something and they would know. And so he tends to trust those individuals who have had those experiences. And even though he hasn't had them himself, he wants to get the answers for the American people. This is not a political statement. The fact of the matter is, this is the administration we're in. We're not in the last administration, and we're not in the next administration. And neither of those individuals have the power to do anything. We're in the current administration. And so it's all about what can be done now, what will be done now. And so if we do not get formal disclosure, say by the end of 2028, which would be the end of President Trump's second and final term, he cannot run again. He's done. He's served his 2 terms. And so if it doesn't happen, then I'm not going to be holding my breath that within my lifetime it would play out.
Yeah, it sure seems like we have a lot of momentum on our side now, with Jake Barber coming out with his interview, and, Colonel Carl Nell, which was in my intro, and, Tim Gallaudet, Admiral Gallaudet. I mean, it just seems like there's more and more people coming out, the claims that Bob Lazar made, back in 1989, everybody scoffed at. And I'm not advocating for Bob here, but I'm just saying the things that he said, people are saying the same thing today. And I don't know, I'm optimistic. But I'm with you, Jeremy, in the sense that I think we have to look at it like a marathon, not a sprint. In fact, on Darcy's last podcast, that's what I highlighted. But I do believe, honestly, that we are getting close to the end of the marathon. I really do believe, it's not a sprint, but it didn't start 5 years ago. It didn't start 10 years ago. It started, 1947 really is where it began. And so I think we're getting close. What was the name of that hearing? What was it called? This group that they're forming about secrets. What was the exact name?
So let's be careful here. And I'm really particular on this type of stuff.
Okay.
It was not a hearing.
Okay.
Because nobody went under oath.
Right.
Okay. If nobody's under oath, it's not a hearing.
Okay.
There's only been 2 of those.
Right. So
The ones with Elizondo and the one with Fravor.
Right. So
And all those.
what was the correct
So,
name? Was it a
and
committee?
it's not even a briefing, because we've had a couple of those with Moultrie and Bray and the directors of Arrows. Those were briefings. This was simply a press conference. Just took place. I'm not sure where it took place, but it was there in Washington, D.C., one of the legislative buildings. It was just a press conference. It was the announcement of
This is what I was looking for.
Yeah, it was the announcement of the body of the task force that comes out of this executive order from President Trump, where he said, you have to come up with a plan to release this, and I want this information quick. He gave him like 15 days. Yeah. So this is what we're seeing.
Yeah. Well, you said something about national secrets or something like that when we were talking earlier.
And that's task force on the declassification of federal secrets. Yeah, it's a task force.
Okay, yeah. I was going to use that as a bridgeway to my first question, because we're talking about secrets. I want you to tell me about this secret UAP working group.
Well, the fact is it's no longer a secret. And the FBI, through this, has actually had to admit that if there is a certain danger that these objects pose, that they will investigate.
You want me to
basically, go ahead. Yeah, please do.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and put that on stage real quick. Okay. It says, while we have no comment, this is from the FBI, on any questions regarding FBI personal matters, the FBI investigates, now get this, unidentified anomalous phenomenon when there is potential for a violation of federal law, particularly unlawful acts that could adversely affect our national interest, and to gather, share, and analyze intelligence to combat security threats facing the U.S. And so that was straight from the FBI. And that's the very thing you were referencing right there.
Absolutely. So they basically have admitted that we will investigate. And so what Ryan Graves, who is the former pilot who I actually talked to at last year's McMinimans UFO Fest there in McMinnville, and of course is with the Americans for Safe Aerospace. Is that the official name for his organization? Graves is...
That's what I had, yeah.
Graves has come out and executive director of Americans for Safe Aerospace, former Navy pilot. He has basically said he is among the sources. There are apparently multiple sources that Politico quoted in this article that came out on February the 3rd, basically saying that there is this working group. There is a manager, for all intents and purposes, a director, and there are agents or individuals, employees, however you view them, about 12 of them, which sounds very similar to MJ12, just based on the number of these individuals across the country who are a part of this. Now, the questions I have is this their full and sole job? Is that all they do? Are they part of this working group and that's what they're paid for, and they do it, whatever, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and on call on nights and weekends occasionally if this stuff happens? Or do they carry this out with some other duties? Because that's important. If this is just something that they investigate as part of their normal duties, we don't know how often, say, they would get one of these cases. But if you have a manager or director and 12 people or so across the country who are actually doing this full time, I think that speaks volumes.
Right. And I think it was in the Political article by Daniel Littman that he made the comment that they spend much of their time tracking down UAPs. Now, what that looks like, I think you brought up a good point, is that on the weekends, do they have other duties? Because I know even when Lou was with ATIP, he also had other duties he had to do as well, Lou Elizondo, of course. And so that there's a big question in this group, because Ryan Graves did say that there's a lot of fruitful information coming out of this investigation. Of course, all he knows about is the non-classified stuff, because they're not going to share the classified stuff because they'd get in trouble with it. But he felt like it was fruitful. But there's another issue going on, and maybe you can talk to that, and that is the issue of this purge going on right now over the January 6th investigation and the FBI agents that
I think
were
it's a
involved.
non-issue.
Okay, well, I had some questions with that because
Go ahead.
because that's what they're saying. They're saying that they are afraid of losing their jobs because of the fact that there's this questionnaire about whether, you know, what your involvement in this investigation was. And so the first question I want to ask you is it a legitimate concern? I think you answered that, but I'll go ahead and give you a chance to answer it again.
Well, look, it's a legitimate concern if ideologically you don't agree with the current president and he doesn't agree with you, he's probably going to get rid of you. And that's what we've seen a purge. But it has nothing to do with UFOs. It should not affect this working group at all. Now, there may not be a need for it if this task force actually brings some of these experts on, because they said that they will bring whistleblowers. They have encouraged ordinary people who have this information to come forward and help them. So if some of those individuals, you know, come join this effort, there may not be a need for this working group. But I mean, we're talking about 12, 13, you know, individuals, and say some of them lose their jobs. I mean, there's countless others, you know, out back who would come serve, you know, with the current administration. They already are serving in the administration. Maybe they're just not on the UAP working group. Maybe they're a field agent. Maybe they work out of a local office or something, and now they would come, you know, to the national headquarters or whatever and join the working group. So even if we lose a few members off this UAP working group because Trump fires them because they were part of January 6th and they helped, you know, persecute him before he took office again, and now he's coming for retribution. I don't know. You lose 5, 6 people. Maybe you lose all 12. All that's going to happen is a new group's going to come in, and yeah, they may be behind the 8 ball, and you know, they may have to kind of start over or be read into what the others, and hopefully it's not a complete purge, and hopefully you have some individuals who stay, right, so they can kind of brief the new ones, and maybe there's some progress there. But I mean, whether you know, whether the entire working group goes away, whether some of them, you know, go away, I mean, somebody's going to step up and fill those shoes. So not worried about it.
Okay. Well, one of the questions that I had, and like I said, I'm not indicting anybody, I'm not making a comment on this, but it's a question I think should be asked. Is it possible that they are using this to try to cover themselves and be protected from the January 6th purge? Is that possible?
What do you mean by cover themselves?
In the sense that, okay, I'm going to say this up front, that they've got this investigation, and so they're using that as a smokescreen so that they get a pass on the January 6th purge, because, hey, you know, look at that. They're coming after me because, you know, I was part of that. And they're using the fact that they're on this UAP working group as, you know, as a shield in a way to shield them from.
Well, I don't think it matters that they're on the working group. In fact, like I had said earlier, if this is just something they do, they have other duties anyway. I mean, Trump gave every one of these people a questionnaire.
Right.
And their questionnaire was, look, I want you to tell me exactly, you know, how you feel on this issue and what your involvement was.
Right. Well,
and then I'm going to get those questionnaires back, and I'm going to make decisions based on those. And for the most part, most of those are individuals who are not on the UAP working board.
That's
so
where I was just going to go. Yeah. There's nobody else saying I'm on this group, and therefore, you know, trying to shield themselves, possibly shield themselves from the fact, well, you know, I'm on this other group, and if they pull me off, which is the talk that I'm hearing, is like the investigation is going to be compromised in some area. You've already.
So you're thinking that if Trump was going to fire them because they were involved in, you know, exactly, going after him for January 6th, but they say, but I'm part of the UAP working group and I'm doing good work on this, sir, please don't fire me, that he might not fire him. Is that what you're saying?
They might use that as well, first of all, they use it as persecution, first of all. And then second of all, they say, look at how important our work is, you know, and really appeal to those who want disclosure. And it's kind of like a smokescreen, because there's nobody else out there that I'm hearing saying that, you know, I'm part of this group or I'm part of that group. This is the only one I know of where they're saying I'm part of a special group. In this case, it's the UAP working group. And but now we're afraid we're going to lose our jobs because of the January 6th purge. Those two are connected. And that's all I'm trying to bring up. It feels like they're juxtapositioning themselves with the investigation of UAPs, you know, side by side with the January 6th purge, and almost as a sense, at least in my opinion, possibly as a point of protection.
Well, I mean, that's the way Politico wrote the article, and, you know, but they're politically leaning.
Mhm.
There were other versions out there that literally just reported on the UAP working group and didn't tie it into the questionnaire and didn't tie it into January 6th and the possible purge. So you can spin it either way you want it.
Right.
You
That's
know,
what I'm
you
just
can
trying to get
believe.
some clarity on your opinion on that.
Yeah,
Which,
and I don't know. I mean, I suppose what you're saying is, you know, totally plausible. But like I don't think there's anybody who's not expendable, if that makes sense.
right. Yeah.
So, you know, even if you've been on this UAP working group, but I can't trust you, you're gone.
Right.
I mean, that's, you know, maybe you can come back during the next administration or whatever the case happens to be. But, you know, I mean, that's his prerogative, you know, to do so. I don't know how it's going to, I don't know how it's going to affect disclosure. Like I said, it may be a moot point anyway, because we may not even need them with this task force. If they're doing what they appear to say that they're going to do, they would then bring representatives from these agencies. They would bring on whistleblowers, and there would be certain members of Congress who would be appointed for certain roles within this task force. Now, I know that we've been screwed over on disclosure many times, and politicians have promised a lot as far as disclosure is concerned over the years. And so, again, I don't get my hopes up about a lot of this, but going back to what we said earlier, realize that this is just, you know, as you said, a marathon, not a sprint. And I do believe we're getting closer.
Yeah.
And like I said before, it has to happen within 4 years, or I don't have any hope beyond that.
Right. And so the next 4 years are absolutely crucial. Well, let me make it clear. I'm not political. Anybody that knows me at all, I don't go Democrat. I don't go Republican. I don't go conservative. I don't go liberal. I just simply ask questions. And that's really what I was doing, was asking a question. I wasn't trying to point one direction or the other. I was just trying to go to you based on your information to see, you know, whether you thought that was the case or not the case and stuff. Let's move on, because we're down to about 8 or 9 minutes. This is going to be a half an hour podcast. Let's talk about the drone issues in New Jersey. What can you tell us? Because it seems like a mess to me, Jeremy. We heard for 2 months that, you know, they don't know what it is. Nobody knows what it is. The FAA is asking questions and doesn't seem to know anything. And then all of a sudden, miraculously, Carolyn Leavitt, the president's press secretary, comes out and makes a statement from the president directly, she says. And it's crazy that then all of a sudden it's like, well, that's just an FAA exercise, or it's just hobbyist drones. And it's like, it's just that same old statement. And, you know, and it kind of confused me because, you know, I talked to some other people about it, and they said, just be patient. Trump's just getting his feet on the ground again and stuff like that. But it just was so surprising to me. How did it feel to you?
I think because there was a change of administration in there, things kind of got mucked up.
Right. Okay.
Because the incoming administration either going off of the previous administration's intelligence, or having their new personnel who have barely been on the job a couple of weeks. I mean, we're talking 21 days or 22 days from when he was inaugurated up to when we're recording this show. And so I don't know how detailed the report that President Trump got. Maybe the fact of the matter is these were never a threat. That is very possible. I want to go back to 2023, what happened over 2 years ago when we got trigger happy with all these objects that were appearing, well, off the Carolina coast. That was the one that was shot down first. They came back and said it was a Chinese spy balloon. And then bit by bit, like every day or every other day for a couple of weeks, there were more of these objects that were shot down in U.S. and Canadian airspace. Only one of them was ever recovered to my knowledge,
Yeah, that's the key.
recently there were some pictures released of the one in Canada, and now just recently, on the day that we do this show, it has been brought forth that one of those balloons that was shot down off the Carolina coast in early 2023 was in fact a Chinese spy balloon, but it had technology from the U.S., which is very, very interesting. It had U.S. technology on it, but it was from China. I kind of find that hard to believe. I think China's technologically more advanced than we are. Why would they use U.S. tech on their objects that are breaching U.S. airspace? And if there was U.S. tech on it, how did the last administration not know that? Why did they feel that those objects were a threat? Why did they feel that the drones were a threat? I mean, because you had things like airspace being shut down, agencies saying that they were going to use deadly force, that they were authorizing the use of deadly force against these objects. And then change of administration, and by the way, these were all FAA authorized, and you have nothing to be worried about. Incidentally, since they said that, you really don't hear about these reports anymore. So was it just a simple case of mass hysteria where maybe there was some sort of operation? And we have to remember that also there was a nuclear response drill that happened in January, and some of this could have been related to that. Some of it could have just been surveillance missions. Maybe we were indeed, there were, a couple of terrorist attacks from my recollection and others that were broken up. So it could have been surveillance for those. It very well could have been another country's technology, but, there was never any action like there was, with the wave of balloons or whatever they were 2 years ago to shoot them down. And so maybe it was just a case of people were misidentifying these objects. Maybe there was mass hysteria, or maybe in fact these were all alien spacecraft. Who knows? But
maybe a combination of everything.
Combination of all of the above. But interesting enough, they have you don't hear about these much anymore in the current administration. So was it something that the last administration was doing? Was it something that they were carrying out in their final days of office? And if that's the case, it makes you wonder what they were up to.
Well, it's like I said, the places they shut down. I mean, that's why it's kind of hard to believe. And then some of the places that even in New Jersey, the Picatinny Arsenal, I mean, they went over restricted airspace, and Trump's golf course over there in New Jersey, Wright-Patterson, I think they had to shut down there too. We know Langley a year before, it was like 17 days they had to shut down. They supposedly, I can't prove it, but what experts are saying is they tried to shoot them down, but they couldn't. And if that's true, then what kind of technology is it? I mean, if you're correct that China has leapfrogged us, as far as with technology, then that's pretty scary, isn't it, Jeremy? If that's the case.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is scary, but I think there's other countries out there who may be ahead of us technologically as well. I think it, probably just isn't China. It might be Russia. It might be North Korea. I mean, it could be. And of course, the other thing we haven't talked about, and I'm happy to stay, longer with you here,
okay. Go ahead.
Is the whole extraterrestrial possibility, which is that these are unmanned or even manned by extraterrestrial or off-world or non-human entities, which is something that certainly has gained a lot of traction since David Grush came out. You hear it just now referred to as, NIH is in the news because there's been some funding cuts there, but really NHI is where it's been at in the UFO community. NHI and consciousness. Psionics, as Jake Barber referred to it, this psychic communication that is going on here. Is every UFO an alien spacecraft? Obviously not. Are some of them? Perhaps. Are some of them U.S. aircraft? Absolutely. Are some of them our adversaries? 150%. Is there some sort of shadow operation going on where these could be? I'm not trying to implicate anybody, but somebody like Bigelow Aerospace, who's obviously privately funded, and Lockheed and other companies like these over the years, who may be able to get a leg up technologically because of the amount of resources that they're able to put in. And so all of these could be possibilities. And I think all of it is happening. I think I think these incursions, some of them possibly could be extraterrestrial. We know that China has been interested in us for quite some time. Yeah. Russian aircraft have breached U.S. airspace. And then, of course, we can't forget about all the incursions over nuclear facilities as well, which was happening during the drone wave as well. The fact that most of those were FAA authorized and they were over nuclear facilities tells me they were looking for something. And so there's a variety of things that they could have been looking for. And maybe they found it, maybe they didn't. Who knows?
That's one of the rumors that was going around, and a lot of people were freaking out, is that there was a dirty bomb, in New Jersey or something like that.
And then what happened? The guy blew up his Cybertruck in front of the Trump Hotel.
Right. Do you think that was connected to this or not?
Well, absolutely, because you read the manifesto, right?
Right. Yeah, I've never heard for sure if that got confirmed to being from him. There was something that was turned out that they said
the authorities did come out and verify that the information that was sent to the podcast did indeed come from the suspect who blew himself up.
Okay. There was a question.
Yeah, for a couple of days, you're absolutely right. There was, right. But they initially put that one to rest. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's a whole nother discussion, right?
And so
there.
He was talking about anti-gravity and how basically some and comparing it to the drones and how some of this technology operates.
So do you think that's possibly from reverse engineering? Any of this stuff that we're talking about?
Absolutely.
Okay, that was my question, because it sure seems like the tech is advancing faster than we would be able to do it on our own without some assistance. And like you said, we're in a new arms race, and that's with Russia and China. They have their own UAP groups, to be able to do reverse engineering, crash retrieval, and all that kind of stuff. So that's very interesting.
Just about that technology, I wanted to say, how would we get such technology? Well, there have been rumored meetings that have taken place between presidents and, extraterrestrial races where they have basically handed this stuff over or given us something to test. And we've also recovered some of these objects at crash sites. And so those objects would then go to a facility where, if you believe the story of like Bob Lazar and others who claim that they worked on some of this by doing the reverse engineering, you would basically, it's like taking an engine apart and putting it back together. You have to know what you're dealing with and be able to get hands-on in order to figure out how this stuff works and then try to replicate it. So, there's a couple of possibilities about how we would get our hands on advanced technology.
Okay. The one thing that some people have said against reverse engineering, and I'm sure you're aware of it, is just like with Bob Lazar, they didn't know how to do it. They weren't getting anywhere. And there's some people that are coming out now saying that. But I think the technology we're seeing, that we can't explain, to me seems to be an argument against that we are making some breakthroughs. Maybe we haven't completely made where we can recreate what they have, but we're gaining some stuff from it. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely, because what we're seeing in the sky is objects that people say are not conventional. You have pilots, you have people on the ground, you have witnesses of all shapes and sizes who are seeing these objects. Does that mean they are just all terrestrial aircraft? I'm not going to go as far as saying that. I believe some of them could be extraterrestrial in nature. But I still think we are behind significantly what an advanced civilization would have. They're going to be light years ahead of us. Anything that they would have given us, that they would have handed down to us, probably would have been old technology to them. It's like if we're going to show say we were an advanced civilization and we were going to show a civilization that is not as advanced as us, what the internet is, we would probably hand them a dial-up modem.
Right.
which nobody uses anymore today. Everything's gone, of course, high tech, and it's either Wi-Fi or Ethernet. I mean, there's no phone. Nobody's dialing up internet through a phone line anymore. It just doesn't exist. So with that comparison in mind, anything that we would have gotten from an advanced civilization probably would have still been behind what they were technically capable.
They didn't have their
of.
F-35s
Yeah.
out there. In other words, you know,
Sure.
our
They're
latest
not giving us the
technology.
best of the best. I can tell you
Right.
that much.
Well, could it be comparison between, you know, a real Rolex watch and then the $25 one you buy in Mexico? You know, there's the real thing.
You
and
didn't
then
fall
there's the
victim to
knockoff.
that, did you, Dale?
What's that? I did fall victim
did-
to that one time.
Oh my goodness. I'm sorry.
I found a Rolex one time when I was doing security when I was going to college. And I thought, wow, it said Rolex on it. And I went in to get the battery changed, and it had all the diamonds around it. And when they used the little thing to break it free, every one of the diamonds popped out and it fell apart.
Well, at least you didn't give somebody, you know, money or possessions for. There are a lot of those scams going around, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. Did you get a chance? I'm sure you did, to see the egg. And it wasn't Jake Barber's video. It was one that was sent in. I guess anonymously, or at least they didn't say where the video itself came from, other than it wasn't Jake's. But did you get a chance to look at the egg object, and what was your impression of it?
Yeah. Well, it's hard to know because we didn't get a bird's eye view of it.
Right.
I mean, I would have wanted to see a zoomed out version where you could see the terrain.
Right.
This is something that could have been a diorama in somebody's bedroom, and they hold their cell phone over it and they pan down. You know, when somebody's like a puppet, they're up here moving the strings. If there is an unedited version of that video, if there's something that from a much wider angle we can see everything around it, I would have a different opinion on it. In fact, coming up on a future episode, we're going to have some analysis from MUFON on the program, who have actually taken a look at that egg-shaped video that Jake Barber gave to News Nation, and we'll find out what they have to say about it. But if you know your UFO history, there have been several famous egg-shaped UFO incidents.
Yeah.
So the shape itself isn't abnormal. You know, it's certainly feasible that if we were to recover an object, we may do so in such a way. But based on the clip that we were shown, you know, the very small section, and from the angle we view, it's just very hard to make up an opinion. Now, if you're a skeptic, if you're somebody who's constantly out to say, well, that's not real and that person's crazy, because there are people who will do that with every single thing that they see on the internet, because they're not a believer, and nothing that you can put in front of them is going to change their mind. I don't even listen to that crowd anymore, because they're in a different place than I am. I'm in a place where some of this is real and some of it's not, and we have to weed through it, and we may never know. And that's just part of the intrigue of, you know, I've been interested in this stuff for 25 years. I don't know how long you've been interested in it, but that's what kind of keeps my interest, is the unknown. Look, if we had all the answers, if I believed everybody was crazy, I wouldn't be doing this. I don't believe everybody is crazy. I believe that there are some people out there. We do have to be careful who we let out of the bag here, because I've been a strong proponent of, we have to have the experiencers telling their stories. It's great to have government officials. I mean, like when you bring the heads of Arrow on and they give an official report in a briefing in front of Congress. I mean, they haven't been on the job very long. We're talking about less than a year, a couple of months, and they're just reading a prepared statement and, I'd be happy to answer some of your questions, but I'm really not going to give you any substance. That does not help us. It does not help us. And when you have members of Congress asking questions, which is what happened in the last hearing, where you ask something and they go, the four people who are there, and they go left to right. Do you know anything about this? And they go, no, 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 no. And I'm thinking, I know who would have been able to answer that question. It's frustrating because you have people who have certain expertise who would probably be better suited to answer better, different questions. I could have come up with 5 or 6 that those individuals would have been better prepared to answer, but instead they gave them questions that were really outside their field of expertise. And so you do have to be careful who you let handle this stuff. I hope that there will be some better organization in the future, and that there is some collaboration on who we're going to bring in, what their expertise is, and then some tailored questions based on those. Otherwise, to the outside observer, it just looks like, we're trying to, grasp for anything. And this is such a complex phenomenon. I mean, it's multifaceted. And so it's going to take many of these open hearings for this information to come out, but you have to ask it in front of the right people. And I think that the experiencers are very important in this. Those who have been taken, those who have been on craft, those who have interacted with NHI. Those are the ones that we need to hear from. But you also have to be careful who you let out of the bag, because not everybody is credible. Not everybody is truthful. And some people are going to say stuff that just is not going to help. This is such a sensitive subject as it is. We can't just allow anybody and everybody to speak on our behalf in such a setting, because, they might screw it up. And there's a lot of people watching. We have to have the right people in place.
Yeah. Well, I'm 100% with you about experiencers. I don't really talk about it a whole lot, but I am. In fact, I just did an interview with Steve Neal of Breaking the Silence channel, and he's putting a video together, which will come out March 1st. But it's been one of those things where experiencers, abductees, whatever word you want to use for them, they've been ignored for a long time, and they've been frustrated. And you're right, Jeremy. There are some people out there that are just going to make stuff up. There are going to be some people out there that have mental illness, but there are a lot of people who've had genuine experiences, and they would love to tell their story. But have you ever noticed what happens on X when somebody gets up and tells their story?
They're immediately ripped apart because of this crowd out there that says, no, I am not going to accept what you stated as anything that's going to change my realm of what is possible. Mm-hmm. We all live within this box, and it's so hard to get us out of this box. And so we like to put everybody into a box and give people labels and really judge things before we even know what it is we're dealing with. For instance, I posted, as I said earlier, that we were going to be monitoring what happened in the press conference to see if there was anything UFO related. And you constantly get hit with just snide and snarky and sometimes nasty comments from people who already have their opinion made up. And look, that's fine. You have your opinion made up. I don't. I'm still hunting for the truth. That's why it's I want to believe, not I believe. It's I want to believe. And here we are.
Well, you got to ask the question for those people who have already had their minds made up. If they don't believe it, then why are they here? I mean, are they, if they don't believe it, why don't they go investigate?
There's a name for those people.
Trolls. I think that's a very good name.
They have no other calling in life than to rip people apart.
Right.
Normally, I give, you want to state your opinion, that's fine. But you want to rip other people down, and you want to tell people what it is that they experienced or what they didn't experience, you don't have a place to do that. Why don't I come into your home and just start ripping apart your life and we can air it out. We can air all our dirty laundry out on Twitter. The fact of the matter is, I'm Jeremy Scott of Into the Parabnormal, and I am who I am.
Right.
You have so many of these people on the internet who are Joe Blow Schmo UFO guy.
Yeah, no name.
Okay,
no
Joe Blow Schmo UFO guy. I'm really going to take your opinion. By the way, when you have 4 followers and you're an account that's been around for whatever, a couple of years, I mean, I don't care. I'm putting this information out for my audience who is interested in it. And if you're just going to be nasty and mean, and I don't got a place for that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's a good segue for us to close this out. But before we do it, I want to make sure everybody knows where they can catch your podcast. You said you're going to talk about one about this. I don't want to make the mistake of saying hearing again, this press conference. Where in the world or what link can they go to be able to find Into the Parabnormal?
Thank you, and I appreciate the emphasis on the abnormal, because it's between the paranormal and the abnormal. So that's why we call it Into the Parabnormal. It is a play on words, but if you go to parabnormalradio.com, I know you want to type in paranormal radio, so just do that. But before you hit enter, put a B between the A and the N, and then you'll get to my website where you can find information on all the shows we've done. There's a search feature if you're interested in a particular topic or a particular guest. Put that in the search bar. Perhaps we've had them on. I'm sure we've done shows on there. All of our shows are free with commercials on our website and on all the podcast apps. So if there's one you like, you can click the link right from our website. If it's one of the top apps, we probably have a link right there on the website that you can click to. It'll open up in the podcast app. Make sure you subscribe so you get notified of those new episodes. We do 3 2-hour shows every week, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Those go to our Patreon live, by the way, so you can listen on our website. You can listen on TuneIn, on Paranormal Radio, or on countless radio stations all across America. We've got stations who pick us up live. We've got stations who put us on delay. Some air us Monday through Friday. Some put us on the weekend. So the easiest place is just to go to our website, listen on podcast. If you're tired of commercials, you can't stand the commercials, there's too many breaks, you can go to our Patreon page and you can become a member there, and that will get you immediate access to the show. You don't have to wait 24 hours. You'll get it within 30 minutes of the live show, and it'll be stripped down without commercials. We've also got news that we put on our website. We have a newscast that we do twice a night. George Henry is my newscaster, and if it's anything related to the paranormal, and in fact, we've got some talks about asteroids coming up in our next show. Stephen Bassett will be talking about disclosure. In fact, we'll be going over what this task force is about, how it plays into the whole disclosure picture. We've got shows coming up on the psionics, or the psychic interaction that some have said to have with these craft. That will be coming up this week and next week, in fact, and we'll analyze the egg-shaped UFO that was accompanying the Jake Barber interview last month on News Nation. And, of course, McMiniman's UFO Fest, May the 16th. We'll be down there once again at Hotel Oregon. And what a lineup. Lou Elizondo, George Knapp, Jeremy Corbell. So don't miss out the opportunity to come down and join us at McMiniman's UFO Fest. And, Dale, I want to thank you so much for having me on the program.
I just want to say you've been a wonderful guest. I think everybody's got an opportunity to see how talented of a speaker you are. And so, I mean, I imagine those 2 hours just fly by. You got a great voice for it, and you got a lot of knowledge. And Jeremy, I appreciate you promoting the McMinnville UFO Festival, because those are 3 of my favorite people in the UAP community. And so anyway, thank you for being on the podcast. We'll tell you how much I appreciate it. And to everyone else, I just want to remind you once again, if you haven't subscribed, to go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Let me remind you to go ahead and share it and like it. Have a great day. Thank you, Jeremy, one last time.
My pleasure, Dale. Have a good one.